Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Hey, what's up everybody? This is Jason with devslopes.com, and in this video we are going to learn about CSS Colors. Now, there's one of three ways that we can use colors in our projects, and I'm going to take you through and show you how to do that. So first thing, in your index file, let's go ahead and create two elements here. The first one we're going to create is a header1 tag, and we'll just write, you are the CSS to my HTML. All right. And then the second element we're going to create is a header2 tag, and we'll just write, anyone skate out there? All right, sweet. So now we've got two elements on our page that we can work with. So I'm going to go ahead and do a vertical split view here.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Why don't we go ahead and create a div tag with a class of container and just wrap these header tags in that, all right? And then right below here, we can go ahead and paste that. All right, perfect. So now we've got a class that we can work with and then two header elements, all right? So let's go ahead and add a color to this container, all right? So to do that, we're simply gonna grab our class container, and then we're going to add a background color to this, all right? And what we're going to do first is, the first way that we can add a color here is by writing the specific name of a color, okay? Now, when you're writing the name of the color, one thing to know is the color name actually has to exist. You can't just like make up a color name and throw it in there. You have to make sure that the color name actually exists. And in this case, we are going to use... let's go ahead and use
with
this
free
dark
version for
slate
non-commercial
blue.
use.
All right. So close that off with a semicolon there, and then let's go ahead and launch this and see what it looks like. Cool. So you can see that we've got a background color that we've added to this container, and we've got our two header tags wrapped inside of this. Let's go over a second way that we can use colors in CSS. And to do this, let's go ahead and grab the header1 tag, all right, and write color. So to add a color to any type of a text or a font, you're going to write the property color. And then in this case, let's use a hex code. Now a hex code begins with a £, and then you can either use 3 or 6 characters depending on the color that you're using. Now, if you're using one of the primary colors like black or white or red or blue, something like
Created
that,
with free version for non-commercial
you can get away
use.
with using 3 letters in your hex code. But if you want more of a specific color of some sort, you can use up to 6 hex code letters here. So this is the hex code for white. I've added 6 Fs here. Now I could add 3, but I'm just going to use 6. And then if we come back over to this and refresh here, you can see that we have changed the color to this header1 font to white. Awesome. So pretty standard. And there is a third way that we can do this. And let's go ahead and grab our header2. And we're going to add the same color property because we're working with text. And then this one is an RGB color here. Okay, so you're simply going to write RGB, double parentheses, and then close it off with a semicolon. And then in here, we're going to give this 3 values. And I'm going to make this a blue color. And so we're going to go ahead and add our 3 values. So
Created
I'm going to add a
free
0.
version for non-commercial
It needs to be
use.
followed by a comma, and then it's 204, followed by a comma, and then 255. Okay, and this is going to give us a blue color. So when we're using RGB's colors, remember, it takes 3 values, and then it's separated by a comma. And again, this allows us to get more of a specific color that we're looking for if, like, the name of a color isn't giving us what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and save that and come back over here. And you can see that we have changed the color of our header2. So very cool stuff. Those are the 3 ways that you can use colors. Now let's dive a little bit deeper and show you how we can work with gradients. All right. So to do this, on this container, let's go ahead and get rid of the background color and put a semicolon, and we're just going to be working with a background. And then let's go ahead and open up our browser.
Created with free version for non-commercial
a little
use.
bit deeper and have a better understanding of CSS gradients. So go ahead and type in CSS gradient, and then let's come to W3 schools here. All right, so it says here that CSS3 gradients let you display smooth transitions between two or more specified colors, all right? And you can see here in their example, they kind of got this greenish blue over to a darker blue. And also one thing to note with gradients is not all browsers support this, like all browser versions, and there's an extra syntax that we can add to our gradients to help browsers pick up on this. So for a gradient, we can either use a linear gradient, radial, a repeating, or a repeating radial gradient. And these are the different browsers and their compatibility. Now, you'll notice that they have a syntax here like a WebKit, and then the Mozilla here, and then the O.
Created with
Opera.
free version for non-commercial use.
Using this syntax here will help the browser read the property value of this linear gradient so it shows up. So coming down here a little bit further, we've got some examples how we can use this. So you can see that they're using an ID and they're using the property background, and then they're able to set these gradients. Now, you do want to have a fallback default color for the browser to fall back on, just in case there is a compatibility issue for the browser. So that way it just reads a standard color and it's going to pull something in. And then you can see that they have 4 other ways of adding the gradients, and that's just adding in a WebKit compatibility for Opera and Firefox, and then they have the standard text here at the bottom. So let's come back into brackets here. And then on this, what we're going to do is, because we're using Chrome here,
Created
and Chrome's
with free version for non-commercial
with a lot
use.
of the CSS standards out there, we're simply going to write linear gradient. This is the gradient that we're going to use in this example. And then put your parentheses, and then close that off. And then this is going to be taking a starting point and an end point. All right. So let's go ahead and grab 2 colors here. I'm actually going to come back over to the browser. I'm going to open up a new tab here and just write in HTML color picker. And then again, W3 Schools has a really cool one that I like to use. And the color that we're going to be using is this blue here. So I'm going to grab this hex value here. I'm going to come back over to brackets, and this is going to be my starting color. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. And then it takes 2 values because now I need the stopping end of the color. And I'm going to come back over to this, and let's choose a lighter blue.
Created with free version for non-commercial
I'm going to
use.
grab this one here and copy it, and then we'll come back over here and paste that color in. All right, and then let's go ahead and change this to a no split view because we're going to be working directly in our CSS here. So now what we've done is we've added a linear gradient, okay, and this is a top to bottom. So back into our browser here, and you can see that it's taken the darker color, added it to the top, and then it fades very smoothly into our lighter blue. Now you saw that there was radial gradients and so forth. We can also take these linear gradients and we can control the starting and stopping point of it. And to do that, for an example, we can add a third variable here, okay? And what we can do is, for an example, we can say to right, and this way it's going to start it from the right to left, okay? So back over here, and you can see now we've got our blue starting from the right and going to the left, and you can do the same thing to like left, and then you can also define like top or bottom. All right, so I'm not going to go ahead and I'm not going to add the WebKits and the syntax for the other browsers in this example. We're just going to stick with a basic here. So that is how you can work with gradients. So it's just a background property, and then choose the type of gradient you want to use, and then you can choose a direction and a starting and a stopping color there. All right. All right, now the last thing that I want to cover here, working with colors, is shadows. And shadows are cool. You can apply those to like backgrounds or text or images, really any element on your page. So let's come down to the header 1 tag, and to add a shadow to a font, go ahead and type in text shadow, and then it's going to take
with free version for non-commercial use.
2 to 3 values here. And in this first example, we're just going to write 2 pixels by 2 pixels. And what this is doing is we have our element selected here. Okay, our element is selected, and then we're saying on a vertical axis, where do we want our shadow to be placed, like how far out, and then how far out do we want it placed on a horizontal axis. Okay, so go ahead and save that, and we're setting the vertical and horizontal axis to 2 pixels by 2 pixels. All right, and that's going to put it to the bottom right. Now, if we were to do -2 pixels and -2 pixels, this would put it at the top left. So coming into here, you can see that it has added a shadow back here. It's difficult to see because we've added a white text color to our font, so that's what it's inheriting. So why don't we go ahead and change that? So right after the 2 pixels, we can actually define a color that we want to add to this. And in this case, let's use black. That'll show up really well with our white font. So go ahead and save that. And now you can see that it's taken our shadow, and it's a solid black color. Now the cool thing is we can actually add one more variable to this property here, and that's called a blur radius. So instead of having such a hard black, we can kind of spread this out and blur it out. So let me show you how that works. So right before defining your color black, let's go ahead and add another value here, and we'll just do 5 pixels. And this is going to take this solid black line, and it's going to blur it out 5 pixels. Okay, so coming into here, you can see how much softer this is looking. So very, very clean. Let's go ahead and add a background shadow to our header 2.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
A text shadow. And then in this case, why don't we just do this like 1 pixel by 1 pixel, give it a blur radius of like 3 pixels, and then let's do a really cool color like let's just do dark blue. Okay. All right, and then let's check out how that looks. All right, and you can see that it's added a much finer text shadow to this. Now we can also go ahead and actually add a background shadow to this container that we've created. So if we come into here and then on our container add a box shadow, okay, and then the same principle, we can define the vertical horizontal axis, set a blur radius and a color. So let's just do like a 3 pixel by 3, well we can actually make this different, by a 5 pixel, and then give it like a 3 pixel of a blur radius.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Easily. And then come over here, refresh that, and you can see that we've only shoved it over 2 pixels to the right, but we've got a much heavier shadow here on the bottom. All right, so very cool stuff. So that is how we work with colors. We can either use color names, hex values, or RGB colors. We've used color gradients in here, and then we have also learned how to add shadows to text or other elements on our page. So very cool stuff. That's it. That is a wrap. Moving on.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.